I think the biggest misconception about people that are tattooed or about getting tattooed is that, it has this stigma and people,
Right.
think that people just want to look badass.
Laura Schaack, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. Good morning to you. Good noon.
Yeah, it's good afternoon over here.
Good afternoon to you. Good night to me. That's what I love about, Corona times have been very timing for a lot, but this getting to adapt to all these different time zones, it's been pretty fun, especially in a show like this. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. I'm incredibly excited to talk about tattoos, of anything
Yes.
tattoos. Laura, are you a tattoo artist besides being a tattoo entrepreneur?
So I'm actually not a tattoo artist. And I think that's what has been the detriment of a lot of people that have attempted something in the tattoo and tech space. The majority of founders have been tattoo artists who decide, maybe I want to build an app. I'm coming from a different angle, right? So I've been working in tech for the last 10 years, so like tech is my trade. Tech's what I know. Building apps is what I know. And I love tattooing and I'm super heavily tattooed and I have a lot of tattoo artist friends here in New York. So I'm definitely coming at it with a tech lens, and the learning curve is really the artistry side. But it's a really interesting, topic to have as a learning curve.
So what does that mean when you say heavily tattooed? Give me the details of it.
I'm heavily tattooed. I mean, I have a full sleeve on my arm. I have, a couple sort of random ones here and there. I have about half my left leg done. I have a good amount.
I love that. So before we get into the tattoo space, who are you, Laura? Give me the rundown of how you got to be a tattoo entrepreneur in tech, and we'll dive into that intersection a little bit later. But I want to learn a little bit more about you right now.
Yeah, so I kind of happened upon the tech scene, right? And it happened, I think, before it got really, really popular, and then Silicon Valley came out, and now every Gen Zer just wants to be a founder and be their own boss, and that's really cool. But there's a lot more to it than that, right? It's also really hard. It's
Yeah.
also a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of constant work. So it really wasn't romanticized for me, honestly. I was working in a sort of international nonprofit space actually, and I needed something more fast paced, right? And this is I came here to New York when I was 17, went to NYU, got out, started working in the nonprofit space, and was like, this is great, and I love that I'm making an impact, but it's not enough of an impact for me, right? So I need a type of industry that is super fast paced, that is going a mile a minute, that is ready to try really innovative, really risky things to see if that's the optimal way of doing things. That probably only describes the startup industry, to be honest with you.
Wow.
So I sort of accidentally moved into the startup space. I was one of the first employees at an incubator that moved European SaaS companies and integrated them into the US market. I'd lived abroad. I'd worked in Madrid, Spain for a while. So I think these European entrepreneurs were sort of like, great, she has European experience and also she's only American on the team. We need a little of both on the team. So they sort of took a chance. I sat there and I took this job at 23 or 4. But I thought I was just going to travel to Europe. Like that's what I thought I was doing. Like I didn't know at the time that I was kind of entering the early stage tech startup space. Little did I know, fast forward not even 6 months and I'm going to pitch competitions, and I'm talking about go-to-market strategy, and I'm talking about product market fit, liaisoning with CEOs and CTOs from Europe, way earlier than I probably should have in my professional career, um, and sort of went on to really be really well integrated into the startup scene here in New York, right? So also joined some startups to build them from the very ground up. Went through a number of accelerator programs here in New York. I mentor for one now, actually. And I think, and then, a little bit after that, also worked at some app development firms. So definitely have a thorough understanding of the
Wow.
tech side of things. So the idea for Tattd came about much further along than whenever I started it, right? I've had this idea for almost 5 years. I only
Wow.
started it about a year ago because, I came to the point where I was like, okay, first of all, it took me a little bit of time to become brave enough to do it, right? Like I had seen founders, I'd seen the really ugly side, like the really scary side, the really intense side. Like I work for the startups that
Right.
aren't like the Twitters of the world where you just get free snacks all the time. Like that's not, but like some people, I'll be at networking events and people are like, oh yeah, I worked in the startup industry too. And I'm like, but which type? Like I worked in the type where you're unpaid working out of a founder's apartment building. Okay. Like it's not, we've had different
Right.
experiences. You know what I mean? But I finally came to a point in my career where I was like, okay, I've had sort of this trifecta of experience, right? I have worked in incubators where I'm seeing companies at scale, right? So those SaaS companies we're moving over are like Series A, Series B level, 7, 8 years old, like really ready to scale, right? Have a lot of capital behind them. I've seen things launch with very little to no money from the very ground up. And I finally have, after working at some app development firms, a thorough understanding of the technology side of things, right? So I feel like I had sort of this, sort of trifecta of experience that would allow me to start Tattd and make it really, really successful, even though I'd had this idea for a long time. So, hopefully that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing. So let's go back just a little bit. At the
Yeah.
intersection of you have this idea for Tattd for about 5 years, and we're talking about the tattoo market, and we're talking about a marketplace that matches tattoo artists with people that are looking for their artist. And
Mm-hmm.
so talk to me a little bit about the market, because I really know nothing about the
Mm-hmm.
tattoo industry. I've
Yeah.
been thinking, and if my mom and my dad and my girlfriend listen to this, then I'm in trouble. But I've been interested to understand what is the tattoo market. Why are people getting tattoos? What is the benefit, or what does it do to them? Emotionally or
Mm-hmm.
psychologically. So please teach me a little bit about what's happening there.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest misconception about people that are tattooed or about getting tattooed is that, it has this stigma and people,
Right.
think that people just want to look badass. And everyone has that story of like their drunk sorority sister that got some horrible tattoo or whatever the case may be. And, we all smoke a lot of cigarettes and like maybe ride motorcycles and like probably will curse at you in a coffee shop line. You know what I mean? Like this is like the idea of people that are tattooed. And it is so inaccurate, and I need like mainstream media to like stop making that portrayal, and I need people to open their eyes to the actual community of people that are tattooed. Tattooing is an art. So funnily enough, half my coursework at NYU was art history. Whenever I was like a child, I volunteered very young, as early as I could get a job at the art museum. I grew up in Austin, Texas, in Austin. I thoroughly have an understanding of fine art, and tattooing is an art, right? These people are usually like illustrators or painters, and sort of come into tattooing. So tattooing is really significant to the tattoo artist, but also a lot of the times to the person getting a tattoo, right? People get tattoos out of sort of like in memoriam of people that have passed. People get tattooing because it makes them feel empowered about their body. You know what I mean? It's really closely aligned with their identity and is something that is really special to people, and is sort of a way to express themselves, right? It's not something that people go and say like, all right, now I feel really cool and like people can't talk to me anymore. Like, like that's not it at all. It's actually something really special. And I think millennials are really kind of getting a hold of that. Millennials and Gen Z, I mean, people can say a lot about them, but they really do push boundaries, and they really do sort of defy the status quo. And I think that's really benefited the tattooing industry, right? Where they're no longer pulling away from that stigma, and people are leaning into it. There's also a trend within the that sort of mentality that is sort of like a personal brand customization. You know what I mean? And it's more this
Right.
question of, who am I and how do I differentiate? When I remember growing up, it was all about fitting in. So like I think I was sort of just on the cusp of that change. So it's really interesting for someone my age. I'm 29. If anyone wondered, but I think it's interesting for someone my age that saw what it was like. That the mental was to fit in, right, and become homogenous. And now I have seen a huge shift, and the mental is absolutely not that. If anything, it's the antithesis of that, and it's more like, who am I, and how, like, do I fit in with these people, or do I not? And what does my individuality mean, and how do I express or define that individuality? And so I think that also sort of spurring more and more. And I mean, the numbers definitely show the industry is increasing, but I think
So
that's why.
give me a little bit about the numbers of the industry. How do we know how many tattoo artists are out there? What is the demand for it? How many tattoos are being administered on an annual basis?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, we know that there's 145 million Americans that are tattooed, which is just about
Wait, wait,
half.
wait, wait, wait. Half of Americans are tattooed.
That's right.
What? That sounds
That's right.
crazy.
That's
I had
a crazy number. That's 2019 data. 145 million. Half of the U.S. is tattooed, and half of them have more than one tattoo. It's not just like one little one-off. You know what I mean?
so a quarter of Americans have more than one tattoo.
Yep.
That's like the best engagement of any product I've ever heard.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's like, it's incredible to me that not a lot of people have really tried to harness the space. Like, this is a huge market. It's a huge market, and it's
Huge
only
market.
growing. It's gigantic. Americans are spending $1.7 billion a year on tattoos. Billion with a B.
Wow.
It's crazy. And I think there's a lot to say for the fact that it's sort of this disjunct industry, and that there's not a centrifying force to it, right? There's not really leaders in the market because all of these are sort of individuals. They're all individual freelancers.
They're
So
all
it's not
small
like,
businesses that are like the small shop in
yeah,
the corner of that neighborhood
yeah,
that you go to because you befriended. That's so interesting.
yeah,
How do you explain
exactly.
then that there is such a big stigma around tattoos, yet half of Americans have tattoos?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think people maybe get tattoos and then, maybe disjunct themselves from the tattoo community, right? So there's a difference between someone that has a tattoo and someone that is like part of this cult, if you will, for lack of a better word. you know, People are very insular about being allowing other people into that sort of cult mentality, right? And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they have been stigmatized and have been, semi, not discriminated against in a way that many other groups are for many other reasons. But the stigma has sort of allowed heavily tattooed people, or people that are a lot more heavily in the industry than just having a one-off tattoo, allows to really sort of band together and nearly reject other people entering the tattoo industry, which is also something that Tattd is fighting, right? So I remember the first time I went to go get a big piece. I walk into the studio and I was like, okay, so I have this tattoo idea. This is what I want. Can someone talk to me? And I got this stink eye of a lifetime from this woman, and she was just like, "Can you just look up our artist and contact the artist directly? You don't do that. Like, essentially, like, get out. Like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
I didn't know it operated like that. You can't just go to a shop, because the shops are literally just chairs, essentially, that they rent out to people. Like, you contract with
Really?
the tattoo. Yes,
Oh, I
it
had
doesn't
no
work like that.
idea. I thought you walk in and you say, "Oh, you look like a great artist. Come here, and I want you to draw something on me."
No, not for something custom. So, I mean, they have, like, again, like, pushing towards the stigma, but on the, like, street with all the bars in any given city, there's probably a tattoo shop that you can probably walk in and choose something off of a laminated page in a binder and get that tattoo.
Wow.
That is not at all how the majority,
I
and
thought it
again,
was
data
more like a
says,
haircut that you have a big book of a bunch of different styles, and you can come in and say, "I want this style now." Like, okay, I had no idea.
well, a
That's
haircut
why
you
it
would have
makes
forever.
right. So now it makes so much more sense to me why there needs to be a dedicated marketplace. Because if you're
Yeah,
contracting the artist, first of all, it doesn't make too much sense to me that you only have access to the local artists that you're seeing in a
sure.
geographical area. Because if you're getting a tattoo for life, maybe you're willing to travel a little bit further for that special
Yeah.
artist, 5-hour drive that can do something very, very special. So now it makes perfect sense. But please keep
Absolutely.
going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's also an issue with sort of the data being very disjunct, right? So when you're choosing a tattoo artist, the having all of the different data points available to you is actually essential, right? You can't just have one. So when I say data points, I mean the artist's location, right? I would love to go and get tattooed in Tel Aviv, like, probably not today. You know what I mean? So location of the artist is essential. Price range is essential, because prices can range from, they usually go on hourly rates. They can range from like $100 an hour. I've seen some for $800 an hour. No
Eight
joke. Like, they
hundred
can
dollars an hour.
$800 an hour. I have seen it. I mean, these are like celebrity tattoo artists, but still,
I think
it
I'm
can
switching
really range.
profession. Wow.
You should. I feel like my fallback should totally be tattoo artistry. You know what I mean? If this doesn't work out, that's
That's
what I'm gonna
that's
try to do.
incredible. And how many hours does it usually take to get a significant tattoo?
Yeah, I mean, it can be anywhere from like 3 to 12, right? It really depends on the size, on the
Really?
detail, on, oh yeah, 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 yeah. The average tattoo cost is like about $2,500.
The average tattoo cost is $2,500.
Yes, or that's maybe the average amount that a person has spent on their tattoos. So it's at least in the
That is
thousands, I guess,
still
for a
that
singular
is
tattoo.
still incredible.
It's in the thousands.
That
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My tattoos were thousands, thousands,
You
thousands
know,
of
if I'm
dollars.
comparing it for a second to the streaming industry, that's probably pretty much what a person would pay for Spotify, Netflix, Hulu over their entire lifetime.
Right, right,
So we're pretty much
exactly.
on the same size. Okay, so that's fascinating. Talk to me a little bit about Tattd, and talk to me about the challenges, about the traction. What
Yeah.
what insights have you gained as you've been building this marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we've built is essentially an intelligent search where we're combining the ability to search by location, price range, specialization, right? So, just speaking back to sort of, my history with art, a tattoo artist specializes in a way that is very significant whenever you're making that choice. So, a tattoo artist that does impressionist tattoos, like now I'm comparing it to fine art, doesn't do like pop art Andy Warhol stuff, right? Like that's not the same person. In the same way, if you want a tattoo artist to do like script tattoo, or if you want a tattoo artist to do Americana, you're not going to go to someone that does the opposite
Right.
thing. You know what I mean? So you need to know their specialization actually. So it searches by specialization, and you can even search by keyword if you want to see a certain image. So if you want to see a butterfly in their portfolio, fine, you can search by a certain image as well, right? So you have all of these options, right? Typically, what a user would have to do is like go to Yelp if they want to know the location of the studio. They would have to go to Instagram and go on a hashtag of the specialization. Find a great
Right.
artist. Wait, they're in Berlin. Like there's no cohesive data. So that's what Tattd has brought together. The app itself has actually gone beautifully, which is probably because I have a history in actually building apps. So it's like that part has gone really, really smoothly, and we've gotten amazing, amazing responsiveness. The number one thing that I hear back is, how has this not been built before?
Right.
Which is
After
just
this
like,
conversation, I'm shocked myself.
I have been shocked this whole time that I've been waiting for someone else to do it. Like, I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this. This is a lot of work, you guys. Someone else needs to do this. And no one did. And so here we are. But I love it. It's like a labor of love, and watching it sort of gain traction and come about. I mean, in the first month, we had 2,000 downloads. We're only open in
Wow.
12 launch cities, the 12 most tattooed cities in the US,
What
which
are
is to
what are
me.
some of them?
New York, LA, Austin, Miami, Denver, Portland, Houston, San Diego, San Francisco, Chicago, a lot of the main ones that you might imagine.
And I
But then
believe that these are
uh,
also the 12 main tech hubs of the US.
yeah, yeah, it's funnily enough, the urban centers seem to follow both of those trends for sure. So that makes sense. No, but what I wanted to do is make sure that there was a strong database in each of these cities, right? So imagine I just like launched, ooh, we're in the US.
Right.
What if you're in a Richmond and like only two artists have signed up there? Like that's going to be a horrible experience. You know what I mean?
Of
And then you're going to look at
course.
my app and say, there's no artist on here actually, like bye, So I was like, all right, we need to concentrate in a, limited number of cities, build a really strong database. I want hundreds of artists, like if not like 1,000 plus in each city. And then I can launch and get even more. You know what I mean? I want everyone on this app. The kind of, other thing to mention is that it's free for both sides, which no other platform has been for artists, which is, so horrible for them, because these artists, they're trying to make a living off of their art, and it's not easy. They have to pay for their own health insurance. They have to pay for, even if they're in a studio, they pay for all their own materials, all the ink you see, which is very expensive, all the machines, very expensive, all insurances, like for like, their actual art, literally everything they have to actually pay for. And then a studio takes a cut on top of that. So
Wow.
making an artist pay for a platform in order to promote themselves didn't make any sense to me. So it is actually free for both sides, and we've still figured out a way to monetize. But that was really, really important to me, just because it is a huge mission to empower creative industries through tech and allow these people to not be paycheck to paycheck for their whole lives. So that was really important. The other thing that is of note is that as I was becoming more acquainted with the community, and this was very much a grassroots movement, right? So instead of going from the very ground up and like, going to the top tattoo artists in the US and getting them to endorse us or whatever it is, I was like, all right, they already have a following, okay? Like they already have enough business. I want to build this. I want this to be a grassroots movement, right? I want this to be real. I want this to be for the people. And that means like for us as users, but also for the tattoo artists, right? So, we did tons of sort of micro influencer outreach. We did an ambassador program where literally I would take 30-minute calls with every single artist that partnered with
Wow.
us that wanted to be on the platform, and told them about the mission and heard about their pain points and all that, and got all these people sort of behind it. Now, as I became more and more acquainted with the community, and funnily enough, as we're building our social media presence and sort of defining our brand, for me, in my value set, diversity and inclusion of all people, of every, gender and race and shape and size was always going to be a part of this. No, I thought I was going to get sort of a nod from the tattooing community, just like, yes, that's what we believe too. Like, thank you so much. Like, we're all moving on, because it's a counterculture, right? It's a counterculture. In my
Right.
head, that meant that it was not subject to the white male paradigm. So I was like, great, okay,
Right.
we probably don't have to worry about that. Little did I know, the more I got connected with people, they were nearly informing me of my own mission, right? And I would get connected with people, and they were saying, thank you so much for being such a strong voice for the LGBTQ community in tattooing. And I was like, what?
Amazing.
Am I a strong voice for that? Like, I thought we were just, being inclusive and being diverse. And the more and more I realized that it actually is a huge issue in tattoo culture, which is shocking to me personally. But it is, and at the end of the day, when you think about it, there's no HR department for tattoo artists. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, if they don't, there's tons of stories about women being harassed by shop owners, you know what I mean? Or worse. Like, so like there's no one that's able to police that, is able to set these standards. So Tattd became to be a really proactive voice for that, nearly accidentally, to be really honest with you. And the more and more I got the response, and the more and more I had people reach out to me saying, I will work for you for free. I had creative directors, I had interns, I had a developer reaching out to me that is connected to the community that says, I had literally someone come to me and said, I am gay and I have never been comfortable working or walking into a tattoo parlor. Thank you so much. Like, I would love to get a tattoo, but I just don't even feel comfortable. I want to work
Wow.
for you.
That's
It was
just
amazing.
remarkable. That really
It
is
was
remarkable,
incredible.
Laura.
And, it's crazy. Yeah.
Thank you for this inspection. Thank you for sharing these stories, and it's amazing how the side effect consequences come about, and I'm sure that fulfillment of hearing these remarks by people that haven't felt comfortable, showing their passion or exhibiting their excitement over this industry. It's really, really great. So it's a really fantastic job on that, and thank you for doing good for the world. Before we leave, I have to ask you for the most important question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Mm. 3 words.
The hardest question.
The hardest question. I would say authentic. Usually you
Yeah,
get sort of me unfiltered at all times, for better or worse. Authentic. Passionate, if you didn't already notice. I'm very
definitely
passionate about everything
noticed.
I do. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And adventurous, I would say. I feel like I usually am really ready to try something new and go out on a limb and take a risk.
I love that. Laura, thank you very, very much. Best of luck with that. And I know it's just the beginning of a long journey, but it sounds like
Yeah.
it sounds like it's off to a great beginning. So best of luck, and I look forward to following the journey closely. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a good one.